Unfortunately, filmmaker Pamela Adia will not be able to join us today, but to my right we have Evan and Sir. My name is Linda Leia Nirenda. I will be moderating this discussion tonight. Why me, you might ask? Well, I'm an outspoken spoken word artist and poet, and I embrace Afrofeminism in my texts and my projects. My academic background is in linguistics and journalism. I have a degree in translation studies, which means that I studied French, but unfortunately I am not fluent enough to conduct this panel discussion in both English and French. I will be assisted by online translators. I was born in Ndola, Zambia, so English is one of my mother tongues. Like many artists, I have been able to combine more traditional occupations as well as art projects. During the past few years, I have worked as an educator, teaching elementary school children, and I've also worked as a radio journalist and a tour guide for the VRT, which is the Flemish Broadcasting Company. But I have also been a spokesperson for a poetry collective, and while performing on various stages in Belgium and Holland. In June, I became the newest board member of non-profit organization Koper Gieterij, which is one of the most prominent theatre production companies for children and young adults. Not only do they produce plays for infants up to young adults, they also organize drama and digital workshops for young actors, as well as internships for beginning theatre producers and directors. So in short, we are very much involved in taking care and mentoring new generations of theatre makers and actors from all different backgrounds. The latest project I am deeply involved with is a play produced by NTG, or NTG, which is a theatre company in Ghent. It is called The Killjoy Quiz. It is a play written and directed by Luanda Casella, with music composed by Pablo Casella. It is inspired by the feminist Killjoy Manifesto by Sarah Ahmed, and it features scenography by Felix Fassolt and choreography by Lucius Romeo Fram. It not only stars Luanda Casella herself, but also Yolanda Mpele, myself, of course, and our amazing Killjoy trio, Maimouna Rachels, Timia Verlinden, and Helena Castella, who will take care of all the instrumentals and vocals during the quiz. For people who want to see it, all the dates are unfortunately sold out in Ghent, but more are coming in January. And in Brussels, I have good news, in Brussels, you will be able to see us perform at the Beurs Schouwburg on the 20th and 21st of November. It's a good thing that I have had a bit of practice doing online panels, because I'm also part of an online YouTube panel called Unheard with Gigi, where we feature Afro-Belgian speakers, where we talk about current events. So now I would like to introduce Zita Gourmay, who is the PES Women President and the FEPS Vice President. She will be joining us live from Budapest in Hungary. Hello, Zita.
Hi, lovely to see you. Actually, I would like to give you a lot of red points because you pronounce Budapest absolutely properly. So very, very well done. Even you should learn Hungarian in your former life, as we would
Absolutely.
say. So, dear friends, dear feminists, I think it's always a great privilege to be with friends all around Europe. And of course, this is usually when I'm opening one of our events. And also today, this fits perfectly. Tonight, we gather among friends, and hopefully many of you feel like I am a proud feminist like you. The Africa Week has not only been one of the most important even during the last years, but has also been about exchange, building bridges, cooperation, and mutual understanding. Highlighting strong female voices has always been an integral part of it. For this year's edition, PS Femin and FEPS, the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, teamed up to spotlight the power of Afro-feminism art via the first ever Feminist Culture Cafe. So that's time for strong clap hands. And this first of series to follow. Arts has always been a strong vector for political and social change. And if some may argue there are fewer female artists, it is not because they are not there, but simply because the power in place have not been celebrating them. Therefore, tonight we want to give center stage to some great examples of female African creators who use their work as a power tool to share diverse stories and to empower women in the society. As it is important to us to lift up other women and give space to African speakers, I will really refrain to have the best of it for today. So I wish you all the best from the bottom of my heart, and I stayed with you because I really would like to understand how you do. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Zita, for that wonderful introduction. So now we are going to go and look at our performance for today and our speakers for today. First, we will witness live a performance by Lisette Lombe, who will share a spoken word piece or slam piece today with us. Lisette?
Cool yourself.
Je regarde devant moi, il n'y a que du noir.
I look in front of me, there's only black. Let me look around. It's only black around. I turn my light on. Everything is dark. I take a paper and a pen and I wrote my memory down.
O contable nous, c'est que y a misu. O contable nous, que faille me hemba, que tique ya hosu. Ay ay ay.
Okay, welcome back. So we will be joined shortly by Lisette Lombé, who is a novelist and poet. She will be talking about her new book lately. The 7th of October, she introduced her new book, Brûler, 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 in Paris. Hopefully, we will be able to get our hands on that soon. Lisette is a staple in the Belgian poetry scene. She is a slam poet. For those who don't know, slam poetry is an art form where we use poetry to address societal issues. So it is rooted in a mixture between literature, poetry, and hip hop. And the key component is that there is a critique, a societal critique. And as artists, of course, we are free to critique anything, regardless of the political affiliations. So this is our prerogative as poets, and I would like to introduce Lisette Lombé with her text. Lisette, the floor is yours. Welcome, Lisette.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Good evening, Lisette. You have the floor. I'm happy to see you, Lisette. Thank you very much. I will speak French, so I hope you hear me. Yes, we can hear you. Yes, everything's fine. I have the confirmation that we can hear you. Let me start with my text, if you agree. When you like. So this text is called, this is a slam called Sometimes at Night, Black Women Are Becoming Dark Again. I wrote this text a few years ago when there were two events happening at the same time. One for demonstrating violence against women, and the sound is cut, unfortunately.
Okay, unfortunately, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. We would have preferred to have everyone here present with us. That would have been easier, but unfortunately, we all have to live in the reality of COVID-19. So we thank you for your patience at home. Please stay with us because there's still more to come. As I've told you before, we will also... Next speaker? The movie. We'll show them. Well, I have just had confirmation that we will be able to show Pamela Adia's film today, right now at this moment. We will come back to Lisette in a moment. As I have told you before, Pamela cannot join us, unfortunately, here today because she has experienced a loss in her family today. All our thoughts are with her, and we hope to speak to her soon about it. But we are very proud to be able to show a trailer of her new film, Ife, and we will come back with commentaries on the film later. So please enjoy the trailer of Pamela Adia's Ife.
I told my mom first. It took her about a week to come to terms with it, which is short for a Nigerian mother. Every day she asked me so many questions and I answered. She wanted to know what that meant, if I would have kids and all. At the end of each day, she'd tell me how much she loved me.
She beat up boys in my class and anyone who dared bother me. She protected me. And my dad used to call her Gebewani.
Was it a long journey? How much bravery did you need when you came out to your mother?
I can't ask you to choose between your happiness and your family because they mean the same thing to you, and I get that.
Is it too soon to say I might be in love with you?
We're lesbians. This is the perfect time.
All right. That was a very chilling trailer for the film Ife by director Uyawedu Ikpe-Itim and producer Pamela Adie. It is facing a lot of controversy, this film. It was released earlier this year. And as we all know, the queer community and LGBTQ IA community are facing a lot of pressure in Nigeria as well as in a lot of countries in Africa. So this film is truly very controversial. This film actually poses to portraits, to give a more accurate portrait of queer people, specifically to women who fall in love over the course of 3 days, in a society where they are not accepted, of course. Nigeria, of course, is known for the Nollywood industry, and in Nollywood films, we do see the portrayal of LGBTQ plus characters, but they are usually portrayed as being possessed or people who have been under bad influence or tied to criminal activities, where the image of queer people is seriously tarnished in the Nigerian society, making it much harder for them to be accepted by broader society. Of course, the criminalization of homosexual acts is a quite recent fact, as it is throughout the African continent. In Nigeria specific, homosexuality has been criminalized in 2014, following traditions of sodomy laws that were imposed by British colonizers. But traditionally, homosexuality in the African continent and throughout the world has been usually accepted or even revered. And we would like to applaud the filmmakers, Pamela Adie, for this initiative to reintroduce the normalcy and the acceptance of queer characters into broader society. The Nigerian government has issued a statement that they will ban the viewing of this film on social media platforms because they have an agreement with social media tycoons and giants such as Google and YouTube. But fortunately, we can view this film here, or the trailer at least, on YouTube. And I invite you and everyone watching to support this film as much as you can. So let's find out. We will issue more information on how we can support this film to be viewed to broader audiences and eventually, hopefully, make it back to audiences in Nigeria. But yes, of course, this is a very controversial subject because they have also threatened to imprison the filmmakers, which is why it was important for us to showcase the bravery of these women to release this film to broader audiences, because that is in fact the dire reality that people who who dare to make flattering films or portrayals of queer characters face up to 14 years of imprisonment in Nigeria, making it, of course, much harder for people to accept their own queer people that might be in their community or in their very family. Okay. All right. So next we will move on to our next speaker, who will showcase us her pictures. We will go on to Fatoumata Diabata and view some of her work. Fatoumata is the president of the Association of Malian Female Photographers, and we are very proud to be able to showcase just a snippet of her work, and hopefully we will be able to have a discussion with Fatoumata afterwards. So please enjoy her work. Fatoumata Diabati. Okay, we are just waiting for a connection to showcase Fatoumata's photography. Of course, Fatoumata in her work puts the emphasis on women.
Oui, bonjour.
Ah, okay, we have connection. Bonjour, Fatoumata.
Oui, good evening, Fatouma. Can you hear us? Good evening. Could you please show us some of your photographs? Yes, certainly. I will share the screen. I'm not sure exactly how to do it.
Okay, I'm sure everyone is curious. Okay, Evan, perhaps while we have some issues, while we're waiting, we can maybe talk a little bit. Are you curious to see the works of Fatoumata? Have you heard about her work?
I'm very curious to see the work of Fatoumata, and it has been interesting what we have seen until now. The movie also that just played out. I mean, this is a very important conversation in so many ways. It's about representation, but it's mostly also about power, to give the power to all the individual to be able to express themselves in the way that they want. And we know that there is quite a lot of challenges until we are there and being able to express ourselves regardless of our background, our color, where we are born, and so on. So I'm very much interested.
Okay. And how do you feel about many people here in Europe who are usually surprised when they see, when we see, for instance, a photographer from Africa who is a woman? They are surprised. But of course, Afrofeminism is not a new thing, and feminism wasn't invented, of course, here in Europe by white women, of course. What is your take on this?
I think with my own background, with coming from outside Europe, I also have seen how discrimination hits people, depending on what I was saying before, where we are born, which color we have on our skin or hair color, and so on. So for me, growing up also in a diverse city, Gothenburg, in Sweden, the second biggest biggest city in Sweden, this has been a reality for a long time. But I also see that this is not the reality for all the people in the society, and that's one of the challenges that I'm talking about, and big problems that we need to handle, and make visible also all these women, all these people of color, people with LGBT, belonging to the LGBTQI community, and so on, to be able to show that being an artist is not linked to having a white collar or being born in Europe. I actually want to quote one of the quotes I read the other day about Virginia Woolf. She said, "What would have happened if Shakespeare had a sister with the same genius?" And it's the same with what would have happened if he had a friend of color, who was person of color, or if the person was LGBTQI person, because the only thing we see is that history is unfortunately written by one kind of person. It's usually male and white males. Yes. And that's something we need to change, to show that history is doesn't only belong to a certain kind of people, but the whole.
Okay, and I was very interested, before we had a conversation, you were talking about the intersectionality of feminism, that when we talk about feminism, that we must include other aspects and not just focus on one aspect. And we have to acknowledge that the reality is that feminists come in all different shapes, colors, but also genders and sexual orientations. And do you find that it's often overlooked in feminist issues?
I think it is too often overlooked, both when it comes to class-related, when it comes to which color we have.
So when you say class-related, you mean socio-economical?
Socio-economic, exactly.
Okay, yes.
Because we all, depending on our experiences, bring with us different challenges that we have had. And in order to address the problems in the society, we also need to make sure that people, regardless of background, color, and sexual belonging, for example, gather around the table so that we can put all the challenges together, address them together. Just having one perspective means that we will not be able to, or we are not addressing the challenges that hit big part of the society, but rather just a certain part of the society. So in that sense, I think that the intersectional perspective, and it's something that I'm working quite a lot within the European Parliament, to include that in the work that we are doing. The EU Commission, for example, presented in the beginning of the year, in February, their gender equality strategy. And I'm very happy to see that the Commissioner Helena Dalli, who is the Commissioner in charge of equality issues, had this very strong intersectional perspective in the gender equality strategy.
Okay, and could you give us an example of a specific strategy that she was proposing?
So the strategy is very common and very broad. It addresses everything from the labor market to the violence, for example, the women are facing, to poverty and so on. And one example is that if you already on the labor market, it's not written in the strategy, but a part of the strategy to address from an intersectional perspective is, for example, if you apply for a job or you apply for on the housing market also for apartment, as a person of color, unfortunately, we still see today that you are being discriminated at. But if you are a woman and person of color, and if you also belonging to the LGBTI community, you risk to get discriminated double or triple. So the gender equality strategy is quite comprehensive in the sense of that if you are a woman and then have other belongings also, then you risk to be discriminated at multiple times.
Okay. And how are they monitoring these discriminations? Are there like blind shoppers, or say mystery shoppers, or something like that, where they used to document these types of discriminations?
So this is also one thing that we are actually working on, that the member states in the European Union needs to become much better on making sure to, first of all, implement the strategies and the directives that we are adopting. And one of the things that we today actually discussed in a group, an intergroup in the European Parliament that I belong to, working with diversity, is that we need to stress more on that the implementation needs to take place, and the second, if the implementation doesn't take place, there need to be consequences for the member states to not address discrimination and racism.
Okay, Evan. We will talk a little bit later on. Thank you so much. We will now go back to Fatoumata Diabate. I hope everything will be all right. Fatoumata? There she is. Can you hear us, Fatoumata?
Oui, je suis là. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Yes, I can hear you. Perfect. I'm sorry, I cannot share my screen, so I wish I could show you my pictures, but I have a website, fatoumatadiabate.com, where you will see the photographs.
Is it someone? No? Okay.
Je pense que c'est mieux le français.
I'd prefer French, if you don't mind. I'll do my best. Okay, Fatoumata, could you tell us a little bit about your work? What's the focus of your new work? Yes, I'm working currently on the health crisis. We were locked down, and I was for several months at home. And that gave me the opportunity to connect with the world thanks to the social medias. So I got an interest into this. And my creations were made thanks to different digital tools, inspired by the pictures I could see daily on the social medias. The title is Empty Mirror, because when the pandemics arrived, it's as if I was shown a mirror that I didn't know, and I had to fill this mirror with pictures that I had to imagine with pieces of my daily life. That's, in a nutshell, my recent work. Thank you. And how does photography work for you? What's the aim of photography for you? Do you want to raise awareness or educate people? Well, I focus on childhood. I photograph what to me are values. So I also use African tales around trees, around the moon, and where photographer you have the family, grandparents, and children. These are some of the inspiration I draw my work from. Also youth. Youth is an inspiration to take pictures. Youth that we should listen to more. And also I'd like to picture that youth want the freedom, and they show that they seek freedom through what they wear. And also they go out at night rather than day. So I'm trying to take pictures of what the youth want. Maybe they're afraid of showing their body out of the light, but we shouldn't be afraid of our body. So I take pictures of youth, of young girls. And so to me, the freedom is easier to feel at night than during the day. For instance, for a girl to wear short skirts. Yes, that's what I noticed when I had a look at your picture. It transpires love or respect that you have towards people that you portray on your pictures. I don't know if I have the good feeling about it. Yes, absolutely. This is my generation I want to portray. So my wish is to express feelings that I see, and with my camera, I can express it through pictures. So yeah, to express feelings by taking pictures, that's really the intention, and I do respect and I try to convey what I believe too in those pictures. It seems we've lost Fatoumata. Oh, you're still there. Excellent. You mentioned photographs of women that are dressed in their traditional robes and with an emphasis on their body in order to comment on the vision we have of African people. How important is it for you to, how could I say, is this a revolt, an objection to the fact that we treat African like objects? Yes, it's a way to say that from childhood we are actually the same as all other citizens in the world. The young people, they live normally. We are no different to other. We want to express our freedom, but in our own way. At night, we like to see, to go out, to see our boyfriends, to dress lightly. So we go and see friends. We go out, just like in Europe and the Western world. So there's not only the traditional gowns. We also like to go out and to wear less formally. So, and what are the reactions of Malian people? What do they think of your picture? What do they make of your work? Well, in general, they like my work. But then I worked on the whitening of our skins, and they didn't take it right. So it depends of the topic I photograph. Some are better received than others. But usually youth like, young people like what I do. Black and white photographs that I take at night times in dancing bars. But some topics are more sensitive, controversial, and so the fact that some people whiten their skin, that was something that was not so well received. But I don't think of the reaction when I choose a topic to photograph. So that's just how it is. To me, it's important, so I do it. Thank you so much, Fatoumata, for explaining your work. We'll come back to you in a few seconds, but now we're going to listen to Lisette Lombé. I hope she's ready and she's with us. Lisette, are you there? Good evening. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Great. It's fine? The sound is okay? Yes? It's much better. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to have you back with us. Without further ado, you have the floor. Thank you.
Nomme-toi. Name yourself. Call yourself Afrofeminism, Afro-descending, Afropean, Afrobank, queer, artivist, with or without a capital letter. Name yourself. Not in a box, not as in a cage, but for the rage. The rage to exist. Get out of the shadows. Stand up. Make yourself, make themselves, make ourselves visible. Be proud. Be proud of your background, of your color, of your origin. Talk about where you are, who you are, and who you aspire to be. Be proud of everything, of your questions, of your ambivalences, of your pullbacks and of your mistakes. Don't apologize. Never accept that your activism is accused to divide women. Who can get against your strategies, your actions, your sweat, your homemade recipe for a world with more equity and solidarity? Who can take the right to define the reputable feminisms, the right, the genuine, the nobles, and the others? And the sound in French is being cut, unfortunately.
Se reconnaître victime.
To recognize yourself as a victim is not being victimized. Never accept that the discriminations that you witness are minimized in being put on an equal footing with others. Negrophobia and black misogyny are not synonyms of racism and sexism. Your suffering belongs to you. Glass ceilings are not made of single glazing. Cultivate your radicalities as you like, resolutely in the margin, present in the decision-making places, rope dancing on bridges between two shores. Don't feel guilty of criticizing so-called mainstream feminist movements and at the same time applaud at all the acquired rights thanks to this institutional routings of fight. Head up, in face of prerogatives and privilege denials. Remain a sting. When shall we have a colonial history of white feminism? When shall we see women of colors at leading positions? Trust your intuitions for your collaborations. Refuse when you feel instrumentalized, essentialized, called not as an expert, but simply as an expert of your daily life. When you are an alibi, a color quota, an exotic speech. Accept lightheartedly when you feel respected and at the right place. Remove your inhibitions towards money and get paid for your work. Raise above precariousness and wish this unprecedented height to the largest number. Undertake, build, network, federate, get inspired by the women who walked the rocky road before us. Those sisters become icons, and those few quoted, few read, few translated, self-criticisms, humility. You are part of the intellectual majority. You are probably living in an urban area. You have a symbolic capital, economic capital. The self-segregating are lurking. Patient, be creative to enlarge your circle. Blinders do not suit your open-mindedness. Look at this wonderful people of allies, friends, and support, male and female. You are not alone. We are not alone. Chase the jargon. Make sure that all your sisters understand you when you talk about intersectionality, whiteity, colorisms, racialized women. Love your beloved, but with lucidity. For some of your brothers, you are still a horizontal one. For some of your brothers, you are still a sick one, contaminated by the white feminisms. Don't fantasize Africa in the distance. Don't give in to the sirens of those who promise you a mythical earth. Learn the history of a fight. Drink from the source of black feminism, or fight for civil rights and Black Lives Matters. to strengthen on your own path of decolonization, learn languages and look at your enlarging family. Remind that everything is political, including hair, but nothing is political, including hair. Don't judge those who are not dancing your dance. Act, denounce, cross the line, claim, propose. Turn your back to the toxic one. Get surrounded with people who are ready to face the harshness of existence and fight at your side. The circle is shrinking, indeed, but it is in this new space that bodies and hearts are getting closer to the poetic embers.
It's a very
Magnifique, c'est vraiment extraordinaire.
Yes, it's a lot to digest. To me, it sounds like a survival kit or a survival guide for racialized people in a predominantly white society. Am I right when I say this, Lisette?
Oui, tout à fait.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a text I wrote thinking that I want to speak about other women who go through the same thing as I do. And here in Belgium, well, they are instrumentalized. You called in a shadow or made invisible. So I tried to put everything in this text and to show the fact that we are dancing on a tightrope. We're spending so much energy on top of artistic creation. There are also questions on where we invited. Why are we invited to some programs, or why are we excluded from them? And so when you're behind a microphone, when you're on stage in a theater or a cultural center, you're an artist, your word is listened to, revered. But once you step out of the door, you're back to be a black woman without any importance, discriminated. So this text is also about that, about the spread, the great leap that we always have to do. So that's the rope we have to stand and dance on.
We all have a lot of testimonies with racist encounters on every level. And the text that you just brought, that you just performed for us, it is a good survival kit or a manual to read to young girls to help them prepare for this world. But what, in your opinion, needs to be done in terms of healing? Because people have been affected, but what do you suggest that we, because now there's a lot of focus on how to deal with racism, how to deal with people with racist ideas, but we must not forget about people that have been, that have encountered racism. So what are your suggestions to deal with the emotional and the emotional repercussions of this?
Oui. Moi, j'ai l'impression.
Well, I have the feeling that these are different places. What I mean here is that the first thing, for me personally, you have what art and culture can do is that you get out of your bubble and you can put words on what you are living. If you are in an association like ourselves with El Slam, where women can meet, can share their experience, you do not feel so lonely. You realize that discrimination at structural and state level, but you are not alone. So that's a question of expression, of speech, putting words on what you feel. And then there are other places. And I think I can help there, and I can help also sharing my text on the stage so that it resonates to people and people start being resilient because they do not feel alone. The other place is in association, in trade unions, in working places, in political commissions and committees. So there are many, many places where you can leverage, some with more concrete results than others, and others with a lot of humility. For me, the artist cannot change the world As such, we can work on the imagination, we can underconstruct or deconstruct the stereotypes, but you should remain very humble. You can write a book that will completely overwhelm someone, but this is not where legislative decisions are made, nor where decisions are made or undocumented people destiny are defined. So for me, the idea is that everybody find the right place. There are people who are still fighting for decolonizing the public space and changing the names of the streets. It's a place to act. There are people in commissions, committees, so that people make their duty of memory and take another look at the Belgian colonization. There are artists on stage. It's another place also to act. So what is important is that each and every one find the right place, and the place where you are the most efficient for people and for their fight.
Then we could also find healing and resilience through art, as well as political support. Now I would like to move on to the current state. We have been experiencing a lot of setbacks due to COVID-19 today as well. Thank you for your patience. But now I would like to ask you how women have been affected. Amongst the groups that are most affected by this pandemic, as we see, but artists have been under severe hardship as well. Have you witnessed an impact on people's demand for artistic production and content to help them channel their feelings and emotions?
Oui, alors, d'abord pour la première partie de la question.
The first part of your questions. I'm still working with Feminist Association in my region. What we could see is that women were in the front line of confinement. They stayed home, and they were in the front line when it comes to violence, domestic violence, violence against women, against children. For those without a computer, the digital gap deepens. The access of institution is now remote. If you have a linguistic barrier and the digital gap, where all these people were left behind. The whole institutional aspect was dematerialized. It was not possible to get access to an office. In families where there was domestic violence, it was exacerbated. What we could see is a bit complicated, in fact, because during the lockdown, I had the feeling that the poet's words were vain. People were in very urgent and concrete stuff, paying their invoice at the end of the month, or in violence context, and we are there with our poems. So I think in the first phase it was some kind of silence, and in the second phase, poets and slammers were very reactive and offered text after text, not to stay in that confined bubble. Everything that was against the sadness or the wrath, we were asked to share texts to reinvent ourselves, to be creative, to put all this into a video and to have it shared to the different households and families, in family circles. So in the first time, I think that there were two movements. The first one was for kind of heart healing, text. People needed tenderness, reassurance, needed us to say that it's going to be fine, it's going to be okay. And we also took back our text of March before the confinement that was angry, text of angers, because discrimination is still there and gaps are even deeper. So you cannot just order your text for, you cannot have hopeful text. You need to stay connected with what is happening and must stick to the reality. That's what happened. And what are we doing now? Well, the demand for poetry that we could see during the confinement goes on, and we have requests to rhyme on what is happening in different places, in different seminars, colloquiums, and other places as cultural places. So there is still that requirement, that demand, which is there.
You've just said, as an educator, I find it, I think during these circumstances, it might be a good idea to teach people from a young age other ways to express themselves, express their emotions. Would that be, what would your suggestion be for that? Should people be taught?
Ça, c'est vraiment.
Yes, indeed. You're talking about the future world. If you need to build a future world, this is where you need to start, i.e., you know, we have very rational curricula where there's no place for emotions, for tenderness, for poetry, for example. When you study poetry, you need to learn it by heart, and you need to tell your poetry in front of the classroom without having ever learned. So yes, indeed, there is no place for emotion in school curricula, while it is a vital dimension of the human being to say, I am angry, I am sad, I am in love, I am joyful. And this is really something which is lacking, and I was a teacher of the French language, so I'm very comfortable. When you studied math, French language, science, there's very few place left for the artistics, for the body, for sport, for any other language which is a body language. You have very few space for solidarity, for empathy, while these are subject matters that are very relevant. How can you build solidarities from a very young age? How do you build anti-racism, anti-sexism? All this is part of, or should be part of, our future world, and in our reinvention of ourselves should take a larger place.
New art form, but it's actually a reintroduction of how poetry was traditionally brought to audiences, where people would just learn everything by heart. So do you think that perhaps this, the popularization of slam poetry, is this a good way to introduce young audiences to poetry and to revolutionary material that is usually presented in slam poetry?
Oui, en fait, d'abord, il faut peut-être dire que
Well, in fact, slam did not invent poetry nor sharing. It exists for thousands of years. But in the 80s, slam created places where people gathered and shared poetry, and there are very simple rules. It's for a democratic space. It's 3 minutes for everyone. My text should have been written just without music, without scene, without artifices. So it's not only the major poets, the published poets that need to listen, as it is the case when you go to the theater or to a concert. Everybody is entitled to 3 minutes, and everybody comes with what they want to say. There is a complete freedom of topic, of flow, of speed. There is a freedom within those 3 minutes, and that means that the slam, this open mic stage, well, you know, you can write your text on the day before, you can be on stage for the first time. It's like a sponge for the world. When you are on the slam stage after this lockdown, we could hear many a text talking about the fact of being locked down. It's like a sponge of the world, and it tells us what is bubbling in this world, what is boiling in this world. And this slam is a catalyst, is also something that tells us about what is coming up. When the Me Too movement was started, there were a lot of women who started slamming on feminism, question on harassing questions. Today we could hear a lot of LGBT issues. So it's kind of, it's the pulse of the world, if you like. And people come and want to be heard, and they want to be heard. They come there because it's free. They are completely free for 3 minutes, and they can be heard. And if they are not slamming, they would not be heard. They would have to issue a disc or to make a play, and it's more requiring. So this is a place where people can be heard easily. And there are virtual slam stages also. People are in their place, in their homes, and they share the slam. So it's poetry traveling here and there. It is a way to tell the world, and it's a very powerful one when you are in front of the political speech of the very big words like poverty, discrimination, whatever. People come and talk to you with images, with their metaphors that exactly tell what they are living. I'm thinking of a woman who said that she had no bed for sleeping, but she had to have a pneumatic mattress, and she had her mattress in her backpack. You know, you do not need a discourse on poverty. When you hear her, you can hear poverty, you can see poverty, you can taste poverty, you can smell poverty, and poverty has a face at the end of the day. This is what is very important in slam, is that people can be heard and can have their own experience heard.
Arts can help us to empathize with other people, because you are able to experience their experience through their eyes and the way they experience it with their senses. Right now, I would like to move to the next question, Lisette, but I would also like to pose it to Fatoumata later, if she's able to join us, because it concerns about Afrofeminism. Your latest book, Brûler, 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 was just recently released in Paris, the 7th of October, and there you address questions related to Afro heritage and Afrofeminism. Issues of racism and feminism have become increasingly present in public debate, but they are not always addressed jointly. So how can we ensure that the fights initiated in pre-COVID times, like racism, sexism in cultural sectors, are not made invisible in the face of short-term emergency measures to address the current crisis? It's a long question, but is it clear for you?
Oui, moi c'est clair.
Yes, crystal clear. We had to take a step besides. Indeed, you have the health emergency, the economic emergency. Even if you do not want to prioritize your fights, the health and economic, first of all, the health issue, and then the economic and social issue are at the forefront. It's not something you can set aside. You really need to accept people's emergency and the violence of the crisis. After that, you know, I'm standing up. I am trying to reconnect to the reason why I was still standing up on the 8th of March, when in March, in Belgium, there were some wind of change. A lot of associations were getting together. We were really working on feminism questions and Afro-feminisms amongst them. And all of a sudden, it's like it was all dropped, as if it was difficult today. Of the friends who were talking about sexisms in the theater world, if they talk about that today, they will be told that first the question of the artist should be solved, and then we will talk about feminisms within culture. There is a kind of hierarchy that was put back in place, but we need to support people because people are right in their fight. I mean, there is no priority to give to one or to the others. People are fighting where they are the most appropriate, but it requires more courage, more boldness, more arguments. There is no hierarchy there again between the different fights. For me, it's simultaneous, it's cross-cutting, it's different temporality, and you can be working on both sides. You can want, on the one hand, artists to have the right status in Belgium and to get out of precariousness, and at the same time, you can still denounce sexisms within the institution, and we can also denounce racisms within those same institutions. But it requires more energy, and we are sent back to, well, how can I say, if you are an intellectual, if you are graduated, if you are an artist, you are supposed to have a kind of relative material comfort. It sends us back to the question of privilege, especially us. We can be victims of discrimination. We need to be all the more vigilant, I think, even more vigilant than before, and more careful than before the lockdown. These speeches can be cross-cutting, and all fights need still to cross each other. It requires more energy, I think, now, because there is this sanitary crisis, emergency, and social and economic emergency and crisis. But the intersectional position that was very relevant in March is all the more relevant today, because you can see all these racism wave and sexism wave that is still there.
Fatoumata's answer on this question, Lisette just talked about how politics can play a role in ensuring that the struggle against sexism and racism is still continued, that was started pre-COVID times. Fatoumata, if you're able to hear me, how can...
Bon, pour moi, comme elle a si bien dit Lisette, elle a presque...
Yes, Lisette said it all. Well, I didn't see myself as an artist. I consider myself as a normal person with every right entitled to have the job of her choice. I can do anything I want. I don't see myself as a woman or as a man. I see myself as a human being, a determined one, a passionate one, and that's how I see myself. However, I came to realize with time, when you explain your background or what you've done to other people, yes, I did meet people who are racist or counter-feminist. So you get reactions such as what Lisette mentioned. So I don't want to react to them, to respond to this, because I don't consider myself as such. But it's true that some comments, they hurt. For instance, in Bamako, we worked on an initiative asking artists what they mean by their consciousness, so the trends. So we worked the opposite way, the counter-currents of consciousness. Many reactions that are traditional comments, they hurt women. And So this is a fight that I have led with my colleagues. I need to help my colleague of the Association of Women Photographers in Mali to equip them to fight against discrimination that arises from the society they live in. For instance, they have no right to complain and to go to the police following discriminations because it's ill perceived. Everybody will go against this woman. The blame will be put on the woman who tries to complain about discrimination, as if she had no right at all. If a boy had made the same choice, that's normal, but a woman can't do it. So on our daily lives, we are hurt by words, by comments. We are shown that there are limits to our freedom. We're not free. And it's, to me, is revolting. That's why I am denouncing. Of course, we are progressing, but there's yet a lot to do. But let's remain positive. We see now that women can work in the public service administration. Of course, there are not many of them that access these jobs. But as Lisette mentioned, we have to soldier on, to go on. We are free to express ourselves. We can have access to jobs. We can do whatever we want or wish in order to improve our humanness. Thank you so much, Fatoumata. I have another question for you.
Thank you for your answer, Fatoumata. So I've heard that you were talking about, a lot of people in the Malian society suffering abuses at the hands of many different people. Have you experienced that during these times, now that with the COVID pandemic, that there is a need for people to have, that there is a need for that there is a need for artistic production in order to deal with these problems that they have suffered, in order for them to offer some sort of healing for them?
Yes, I would say so. It is a reality. We are hate the most. As Lisette rightly underlined, if you work as a teacher, you have not much time left for creation. And the artists cannot produce. Well, in the pandemics, I haven't moved. We were locked down. So only once did I get out of the house to meet with other artists and to expose my work. I like moving around. So, of course, it's nice to stay at home, but our creativity is hindered, is slowed down. We used to organize meetings in Brussels or somewhere else. And it's not only meetings, but what's important is the dialogue on the side, on the margin of meeting, where we can exchange, we can talk about our experiences and of what we've done. So this exchange is really important to me. Here we are in front of our computer. Yeah, we do exchange, but it's a different way of working. You need to get used to all these new technologies. It's new to me, but I think I'm ready now to tackle the future, because that's how it will be. We don't know when we'll go back to normality. I think the pandemic has had a heavy impact on artistic productions. We're stuck at home. We can't do much. Yes, artists are facing difficulties. This is true. I don't know if I answered your questions or not.
Last question for you, Fatoumata, before we end this session. What are more practical things that politicians here can do, specifically here in Belgium or all over the world, or even in Africa? What are concrete steps that they can take to support the work that you are doing with your association?
Déjà, ce qu'ils peuvent faire, c'est déjà...
Well, the first thing they can do is to allow us to express ourselves like we're doing today. And support us in all the back office work, I would say. Also to straighten out politics. We see protests, we see political demonstrations. So I'm talking about political maneuvers in the shadows. So it's important to help us express ourselves, that's first, and also to support us financially so that we can keep creating. It's really hard. Here I have my home studio and I need to go out to photograph and portray people. It's really not easy. I need to put all the measures in place for distanciation, protection. So there's new protocols that I need to abide by. It's a lot of adaptation, and it's quite stressful, to be frank. And that's restraining the freedom of expression. It's limiting our work. Physically, when we go out, there are a lot of measures to apply, but also our moral work. So we need also financial support. It's really hard. It would be nice if things were done differently. It would be nice for us artists.
I would invite everyone to support Fatoumata, and by viewing the photographs online, you can view them on her website. Since we haven't had the chance to share them with you tonight, links will be provided throughout the website. So now I would like to first thank all of the speakers that were able to make it with us tonight. Thank you very much, Lisette, for your contribution, Fatoumata Diabate, and also Pamela Adia, who was not with us here today. But I would invite everyone also to view and share her trailer and to support her film as it is released here in Belgium and everywhere else. And I would also like to thank Zita Gourmay for her introduction. Now I would like to give the last word to the nice lady here next to me, Evin. Yes. Thank you. You can have the final word today.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for moderating this very interesting conversation, Linda. I just realized that I need to work on my French. But it has been very interesting, both hearing the conversation, but also, of course, the input that has been in the conversation, seeing the film. I also look forward to seeing the photographs that Fatoumata have wanted to present, but we were unfortunately not able to show today. And also, of course, to PES and FEPS for providing this very important platform and this important discussion to African feminist voices from across Europe and beyond, I would say. And to also have an intersectional perspective, I think it's quite important. We were discussing it a bit before also, and I quoted Virginia Woolf with saying what would have happened if Shakespeare had a sister with the same genius. But I would either rather say also what would have happened if he was a woman, or he was a person of color, or he belonged to the LGBTI community. Most probably we wouldn't have seen his art in the same way that we are seeing his art today. And that shows both historical challenges and problems that we have had, and also current problems that we have, that people of color, and especially women, who are people of color, who also belongs to maybe have other background than growing up or being born in Europe, have not the same possibility to make their voice heard within our different member states, but also in the union broadly. And one other thing that I think is important that this conversation has shown, it's the importance of art. I think we as politicians, we talk quite a lot about what we as politicians can do, what measures can we take, what policies we should conduct, and that is of course very important, the policies to conduct. But in the end, the artists are actually the real influencers, putting the agenda on how we act towards each other, what is important, what is to be highlighted, what problems do we see in the society that needs to be addressed, and so on. So I think this conversation, at least from my perspective, have shown quite a lot of important perspectives that we as politicians need to have with us. Another perspective, of course, a point that was addressed is the anti-racist struggle, and the Black Lives Matter movement was, for example, mentioned. This is something that we have also with the European Parliament, of course, try to do from the progressive side, try to do take our share of responsibility, even though I would myself say that it has come very late. You asked the question of COVID and why the issues has been addressed now related to COVID, and also our speakers were rightly saying that, I mean, it's not an issue that have appeared. The discrimination and racism issues is nothing that only have appeared with COVID, but it has been long ongoing. Nevertheless, it is on the agenda of the European Parliament, and we are trying as a progressives, taking our share of responsibility to address the current challenges and problems with discrimination, with racism, and not at least to have the intersectional perspective, the feminist perspective with us in the conversation. So thank you very much for your moderation also during this discussion.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. And that has unfortunately led us to the conclusion of the Feminist Culture Café today. But stay tuned, there are still some more talks coming this evening, and I hope that you will still follow all the wonderful performances, debates, and lectures throughout this EU Week for Africa. For now, thank you and good evening.
Nkanu tara yorojana ale mason segima Jarabi tara yorojana ale mason segima Nderini ngabe diza ni jarabi ma feganyalo nyala Nderini ngabe diza ni kanu I want to know Nderini ngabe diza ni jarabi I want to know. Jarabi wale yarajan sigila mabe bonye so ma datina polisa kle wan gbegbe suka so ma datina polisa suka utina polisa ninmi jaja tenselala so ma datina polisa kle wan gbegbe suka suka Jarabita la yarajana ale mason segima.